There are moments in baseball that don't fit inside the rules. Not because someone broke them, but because someone simply outgrew them. June 3, 2026. Dodger Stadium. Shohei Ohtani vs. the Arizona Diamondbacks. By the time the night was over, three of the greatest names the sport had ever produced, Joe Torre, CC Sabathia, and Alex Rodriguez, sat in front of the camera with nothing left to say. Torre, who managed 4 World Series championships. Sabathia, who threw 3,093 innings across a career that defined a generation. Rodriguez, who hit 696 home runs and saw nearly everything this sport could show a man. They had no words. That is where this story begins. It didn't start as a historic night. It started as a baseball game. Ohtani walked to the plate in the first inning the way he always does, with that quiet certainty, that stillness before the storm. The Diamondback starter threw his pitch. The ball met the bat. The crack echoed across the stadium the way it always does when Ohtani makes contact, a sound that doesn't quite belong in the same sentence as other sounds. He reached first base on a single. Unremarkable, on the surface. But the bat had cracked. Broken clean through. Most hitters step out of the box. Most hitters ask for a new bat. Most hitters take a breath and reset. Ohtani ran through first base and kept going. That was the first moment of the night when the broadcast booth grew quiet. He took the mound in the bottom of the first. There is something that happens when Ohtani pitches that television cannot fully capture. It isn't just the velocity. It isn't just the movement. It is the way the opposing hitters look when they step back into the dugout. They don't look defeated. They look confused. Like they've been asked a question in a language they don't speak. The Diamondbacks were no different. Ohtani worked through the lineup with a precision that felt mechanical, almost cold. His fastball sat at 96, 97, 98. His sweeper broke so late that hitters who had committed to swinging had no time to adjust. First inning, 3 up, 3 down. He returned to the dugout, sat down, and said nothing. The scoreboard read 0-0. But the game was already tilting. Then came the third inning. And the discovery that would give this story its most complicated chapter. Between innings, Ohtani looked down at his hand. A small cut on his finger. The kind of thing a player might mention to the trainer quietly, get a bandage, and move on. The kind of thing that gets reported in a post-game notes column and forgotten by morning. But the cut was bleeding visibly. Enough that the training staff noticed. Enough that it became a conversation on the bench. He went back to the mound. 6 innings. 0 runs allowed. 0.74 ERA on the season. 88 pitches. Blood on his finger through the final frames. When the camera caught a close-up of his pitching hand in the 5th, the broadcast booth paused. Not for dramatic effect. Because there was genuinely nothing to say. CC Sabathia, who himself pitched through pain for 2 decades, leaned back in his chair and let out a long breath. "I don't know what to do with this guy," he said. He meant it as a joke. He didn't laugh. In the press area above the diamond, A-Rod had gone quiet for the better part of 2 innings. This was not normal. Rodriguez is many things in a broadcast booth: analytical, energetic, opinionated, often all 3 at once. Silence is not usually in his vocabulary. But by the time Ohtani had completed his 5th scoreless frame with a split-fingered fastball that dropped out of the zone so sharply the catcher had to lunge, Rodriguez simply shook his head. A producer later said he had been staring at the monitor for 45 seconds without speaking. When he finally did, it was a single sentence. "I'm speechless." Not speechless the way people say they are speechless. Not the broadcast-friendly, hyperbolic speechlessness that fills airtime. Genuinely, quietly, completely at a loss. Joe Torre, sitting at the far end of the desk, nodded. He had managed Derek Jeter. He had managed Mariano Rivera. He had watched some of the greatest individual performances in baseball history from the most important seat in the dugout. "Ban the two-way player," Torre said. He said it with a smile. But the smile didn't reach his eyes. Because he knew that wasn't the answer. And he knew that whatever the answer was, nobody had found it yet. Let's go back to the fourth inning. Because the numbers alone don't tell this story. Ohtani had a 1-2 count on Arizona's cleanup hitter. The hitter was sitting on the fastball, had been all at bat, leaning in, his front foot starting just a fraction of a second early. Ohtani's catcher called for the sweeper. What happened next takes 3 seconds in real time. In baseball, it takes much longer. The pitch left Ohtani's hand and, for a fraction of a moment, it looked like a fastball. It had the same arm speed. The same release point. The same trajectory out of his hand. The hitter began to commit. Then the ball moved. Not the kind of movement that hitters talk about when they mean a little late break. The kind of movement that makes a hitter's brain argue with his eyes. It swept 12 inches outside the zone in the final third of its path, and the hitter's swing, already committed, already going, caught nothing but air. Strikeout. Ohtani did not react. He caught the return throw from his catcher, turned, and stared in at the next hitter. In the booth, Sabathia had pitched that kind of pitch. Had thrown sweepers with late movement that made hitters look foolish. Had dominated games from the mound for 16 years. He watched the replay twice. "That's illegal," he said. Then he caught himself. "It's not. It's just, I shouldn't be able to do that." By the 6th inning, the conversation in the booth had shifted. It was no longer about what Ohtani was doing. It was about what it meant. Torre said it first. Quietly, not as a talking point. More like something he had been sitting with for several innings and finally needed to say out loud. He bats first and he pitches 6 innings. He does both in the same game. And when you talk about the greatest players who ever played this game, Ruth, Mays, Aaron, the conversation has always been theoretical. What if they could pitch and hit? What if the best hitter alive was also the best pitcher alive? He paused. It's not theoretical anymore. The room absorbed that. Rodriguez nodded slowly. Sabathia didn't say anything. Because there was nothing to add. The final line read like something out of a generation-defining moment. Batting average on the season, .301. Era, 0.74. Tonight, 6 scoreless innings, 88 pitches, a single with a broken bat, a mound appearance with a bleeding finger, and the kind of sweeper that will live in the memory of every hitter who faced it for the rest of their careers. Dodgers win. Ohtani walks off the mound the same way he walked onto it. No theatrics. No fist pump. No look to the camera. He hands the ball to the pitching coach, pulls his cap down, and heads for the dugout. In the post-game press conference, a reporter asked Dave Roberts a question that had no clean answer. What was it like to manage Shohei Ohtani tonight? Because what we saw, the broken bat, the bleeding finger, the 6 innings, that doesn't feel like baseball. That feels like something else. Roberts smiled. The kind of smile that means a man has been thinking about how to answer this question for the last hour. Yeah, he said. He let the word sit for a moment. I've been doing this a long time. And there are players who make you feel lucky to be in the same dugout. And then there's Shohei. He shook his head slightly. He makes you feel like you're watching something you're not supposed to be able to see. A different reporter asked about the finger. Whether there had been a conversation about taking him out. We talked about it, Roberts said. He looked at us. He didn't say a word. He just turned around and went back to the mound. Roberts shrugged. You don't argue with that. In the broadcast booth, After the final out was recorded, the three legends sat for a moment in a quiet that the production team did not try to fill. Torre finally broke it. "I've been in this game for 50 years, he said. As a player. As a manager. As an analyst. I've seen everything this sport has to offer." He looked down for a moment. "I haven't seen this." Sabathia nodded. "The two-way thing, everyone talks about the two-way thing. But it's not the two-way thing. It's that the two-way thing is him. The best version of this that any human being could do." Rodriguez had been quiet. He looked at the monitor. The replay was running again. Ohtani, running through first base on a broken bat. Ohtani, back on the mound, blood on his finger, sweeper dropping through the zone. "Ban the two-way player," Torre had said earlier, with a smile. Rodriguez didn't smile. "You can't ban him," he said. "You'd have to ban baseball."